Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts. We begin in the Northwest Territories. RCMP have arrested 10 people, and 3 of them are facing charges after an incident in Hay River on Friday. Police were responding to a report of a possible hostage situation. 3 men are now in custody, and as Carla Ulrich tells us, one of them has outstanding warrants in both Alberta and the Northwest Territories.
Hay River RCMP responded to reports of a potential hostage situation on Pine Crescent last Friday. Police set up a perimeter and brought in the emergency response team, police dog services, and the crisis negotiation team. By 3:30 p.m., police took 10 people into custody, including Christ Nagateki, Yanis Jama, and Lorin John from Edmonton. Those 3 men now face charges connected to previous drug and weapons offenses. The others arrested on that day were released without charges. At the time of Lorin John's arrest, he had a Canada-wide warrant related to a shooting in Alberta and a warrant related to weapons charges in the NWT. The incident on Friday is believed to be tied to the illicit drug trade. The initial report of a hostage-taking remains unconfirmed and police are still investigating. The mayor of Hay River, Candace Jamieson, says the incident was unsettling, and she expressed concern about the lack of people in the local jail. She wants to know what the disconnect is between the work the RCMP do and what happens in the criminal justice system.
I think the officers do an amazing job here in our community. I'm not sure why our jails are empty with what's going on, but, I think that would be my biggest concern, is that once we get to the court that something isn't there that needs to be there.
Jamieson says that Hay River has taken significant steps to address issues in the community, like creating the Healthy Communities Committee and working with the Community Watch Group. She says it's important for residents to take an active role in public safety.
If you know something, phone Crime Stoppers. There's no way that it can come back to you. It helps the RCMP create a file or add to the existing file on individuals. So I think it's going to take all of us.
One Pine Crescent resident watched the situation unfold. CBC granted them anonymity over concerns for their safety. The resident says the house in question is known for having a lot of traffic, and that watching the incident was unnerving, but it has become more common recently. A house on the block known for criminal activity was lit on fire last November. They hope that the recent incident will be the last. Carla Ulrich, CBC News, Fort Smith.
The Nunavut Housing Corporation says it's now identified accommodations for the majority of those displaced by last week's apartment fire in Iqaluit. The fire affected 36 families. 30 housing units have been found so far, and some people have moved in already.
We've got 13 people who've been rehoused so far, and I believe there's another 4 or 5 that'll be going in today. And as the week progresses, we'll continue to get the units ready and furnished and get them moved.
The units were either empty government staff housing, vacant units, or leases that were ending. All of the housing units for the displaced victims will be in Iqaluit. The Nunavut Housing Corporation says it's too soon to say what kind of overall impact this will have on the GN's housing supply. The Iqaluit Fire Department is investigating the fire with support from Iqaluit RCMP and the Nunavut Fire Marshal's Office. The NWT and Nunavut recorded 437 contaminant spills last year. That's according to numbers on the 2 territories' shared database from last week. Only a handful of those gas, oil, and fuel cases are in the thousands of liters. But environmental experts are worried that the cumulative effect of all those spills isn't being adequately tracked. Samuel Watt reports.
Nunavut made up more than half of those spills. In some of those cases, the spill site is remediated or the substance evaporates naturally. But this marine spill management expert believes the impacts of those spills don't just vanish into thin air.
It tends to trivialize the narrative that this doesn't have a community and social impact because people see the oil has spread a long way.
He says there are ways to measure the spread of a spill beyond the immediate area, things like surveillance planes with GPS tracking, but he doesn't believe that's happening much.
You often show these hundreds of spills as dots on the map. You find that location, the source, and the amount. And it sort of stops there.
Nunavut's Environment Department says responsible parties do have to determine how far a spill has spread. They identify risks to nearby people, wildlife and surrounding waters, but they don't document the cumulative effects of spills. That's also not in federal environmental emergency regulations either. The lack of assessing the build-up effect of these spills worries clean energy experts.
There isn't any magic that can make them go away. They bioaccumulate and persist.
Not to mention the cost. Just from an oil tank spill, the Insurance Bureau of Canada estimates most cleanup bills to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Money is also a cumulative effect, and we need to keep in mind what those overall costs are over a period of time.
Unfortunately, accidental spills will continue to happen in high shipping areas like the Arctic, so she says the solution is phasing out diesel. Samuel Watt, CBC News, Iqaluit.
This past October, fuel costs in Norman Wells NWT got so high that the town declared a state of emergency. Months later, residents say not a lot has changed. Sarah Kromolowski has more.
The Northwest Territories town of Norman Wells is now 3 months into an affordability crisis. Last fall, fuel prices got so high that leaders said some residents were choosing between heating their homes and paying for food. Since then, fuel prices have gone down. Fuel supplier Imperial Oil announced that it would temporarily lower prices in October, and in November, the territorial government started a subsidy on fuel prices in Norman Wells. The price for heating oil is now within about 20 cents of what it was this summer, but residents say that prices are still really high on everything from groceries to construction supplies.
So I don't eat foods that I used to eat before, can't afford to. You can't afford to do a lot of things that you used to be able to do.
Town employees told CBC that the Norman Wells Food Bank is nearly twice as busy as it was back in the summer. More people are using it, and packages now go out every 2 weeks instead of once a month. And with no barges expected to come this summer, they don't see the increased use of the food bank going down anytime soon. Sarah Kromolowski, CBC News, Yellowknife.
The Yukon is in the midst of a winter heat wave. Temperatures were above zero across the territory on Sunday, and that has some Yukoners worried. Katrin Pilkington has that story.
Here in Whitehorse, it looks like spring. Wet, slushy, with melting snow everywhere you look. It's hard to believe it's the middle of January. Over the weekend, weather records were broken across the territory. In Faro, Teslin, Dawson City, Carmacks, Burwash Landing, Haines Junction, and Beaver Creek. Temperatures soared 10 and in some cases 20 degrees higher than normal for this time of year. But how are Yukoners feeling about this?
It's very unusual. I can remember growing up here in January, we'd have a couple of weeks of 40 below and you know, we coped with it, of course. This is very unusual. Like, I just heard the prediction of rain.
This weather is too warm for everything, including the wildlife. Great example is when it thaws and then freezes, the owls can't get under to get the mice. So it's a really dangerous thing for the wildlife, and it's not good for people either. But, you know, I think everybody's running wild on the climate change thing. You know, climate change is something that happens all the time.
Love it, love it. I'm aware that it's warmer than it should be, but yeah, I'm not mad about not having to wear too much right now.
Of course, the north is warming even faster than the rest of the planet. Brian Horton is a climate change researcher at Yukon University.
We're seeing changes to how our seasons work. We're experiencing that this week and have been most of the winter, where temperatures have been up and then down and then up. And that's weather. You know, that happens, you know, every year we'll have weird things like that. But it's the pattern that's different. It's the pattern of, you know, there have been a lot of warm winters and there have been a lot of warm periods going back, you know, several decades now. And so those are examples of some of the changes that we're seeing here in the Yukon.
These changes are making for a different winter than many Yukoners are accustomed to. Katrin Pilkington, CBC News, Whitehorse.
A team of scientists in Antarctica has been studying a piece of ice drilled from deep below the polar surface. It dates back more than 1 million years. Karen Pauls looks at how the ice core could help solve mysteries about Earth's changing climate.
Deep in Antarctica, at a remote research station, a team of scientists has been drilling into the ice to the rock nearly 3 kilometers down. They've extracted an ice core that, when laid out end to end, is longer than 8 Eiffel Towers and provides a record of 1.2 million years of Earth's climate, the first of its kind.
It's just an enormous success. We're so thrilled.
Suspended in the ice are ancient air bubbles and particles scientists hope will solve a mystery about Earth's climate history. Specifically, what happened 900,000 to 1.2 million years ago when Earth's climate became less predictable, more rapidly changing between cold and warm periods. Some researchers say our ancestors came close to extinction. Scientists believe CO2 and other greenhouse gases were responsible. Preliminary research suggests levels then were as high as they are today.
It's a riddle for us. We just don't understand what causes the climate to change like that.
But this isn't the oldest ice discovered. That was retrieved last year in Antarctica by American scientists, dating back 6 million years. Princeton's John Higgins says this research is especially important at a time when some people still don't believe in climate change.
Ice cores give us really a unique record of Earth's past in that they trap little bits of essentially ancient atmosphere. And so they're really the closest you can get to going back in a time machine and being able to measure what the atmosphere was like in the past, with an idea about, how those might be relevant for understanding how Earth's climate might change in the future.
This latest sample is being kept at minus 50 degrees Celsius. It's being cleaned and cut into pieces so it can be transported to labs around Europe, where scientists will do their analysis. The first results expected late this year. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Kanupita National Inuit Health Survey team is going to every community in Nunavut, speaking to Inuit about their health and wellness. And every answer will help us as Inuit determine our own priorities for a healthier future. Together, we will answer the question, Kanupita, how are we? Find out when we're coming to your community. Learn more at qnihs.ca.
Earth is our collective home. That makes us all family. As family, we strive to love and protect each other. Diversity of species is our strength. We are all connected. We survive and thrive together. We celebrate many things this season and make many choices. Taking care of our family should be the easiest. We're in this together.
Being there means being here. Russian forces, they want it badly. It's just a fraction of the mess here in Port aux Basques. To witness, to listen, to share.
I'm so sorry. I do worry about them.
Adrian Arsenault reports on CBC News, stream free.
We're often drawn to people who have something we want in ourselves.
But it doesn't mean living like you're running out of time. It means living in a place of hope.
The Inu Child First initiative is coming to Kugluktuk, Nunavut. The program, commonly known as Jordan's Principle, helps families with food security. All Inuit beneficiaries aged 18 and younger can register. Each legal guardian is entitled to $500 per child, with an additional $250 for children aged 3 and under.
I've heard from a few parents that they're excited to see that the program came into town. If the program wasn't being offered by an office in the community, they didn't have the support and they didn't know where to look. They're excited.
The program does have guidelines that families and stores will need to follow. Those guidelines will be handed out when people register. Young Inuit are giving their input on a new mental health video game for Nunavummiut. It's based off a similar game for Indigenous Maori youth in New Zealand called Ice Sparks. The goal is to help youth develop healthy coping skills. Carl Cardinal has that story.
Virtual Gagic is a video game designed by mental health expert and youth from Nunavut. The team is working on a quest game that resonates with Inuit culture and traditional knowledge. Their project integrates elements from cognitive behavioral therapy to help youth with their mental health. Yvonne Bro is a psychologist and researcher at York University. She says youth involved in the project brought a lot of feedback and ideas.
We wanted the Inuit philosophy to inform everything we were doing. Inuit youth's ideas of what wellness should look like, combined with the knowledge we bring from our Western Southern perspective, which was based in cognitive behavioral therapy, which is known to be helpful for addressing stress, anxiety, and depression.
For the past 4 years, more than 100 Inuit youth got to help develop the game. Tyron Piwatualuk was one of them.
I was very happy with the game after learning the actual purpose of the video game, because we tried to make sure that we use Inuit Kajimaya Kanyit to make sure we help young people and Inuit with mental health issues.
Madeline Kumutuatuk is the Nunavut coordinator for the new wellness games and cultural advisor on the project. She says it was good to see the youth coming out of their shell and taking part in the project.
And this is all incorporating mental health. And we know in Nunavut how lacking that is up here in our communities. So this is one way of working on mental health, helping youth of Nunavut, and it's in our language, Inuktitut.
Youth are now invited to test the game prior to its release. The team behind it is hoping the game will be used in school in the future. Carl Cardinal, CBC News, Iqaluit.
This is a critical week for Canadian leaders in their ongoing fight to prevent U.S. tariffs. Donald Trump will be sworn in as the next American president in a week, and his threats could be made official the very same day. Ottawa says it has plans to retaliate, but one premier says that could trigger a national unity crisis. Ashley Burke has that story.
After personally meeting with Donald Trump, Alberta's premier says Canada needs to get ready for U.S. tariffs next week.
We do need to be preparing ourselves for the fact that they're likely to come in on January 20th.
Smith spoke to Trump at Mar-a-Lago on Saturday and a golf course the next day. She says Trump seems undeterred to impose a 25% tariff on all Canadian goods.
I haven't seen anything that suggests that he's changing course. So our job is going to be to work overtime to make sure that we can make the case for carve-outs if that potential does happen.
The Prime Minister says if that does happen, he will take action.
We are ready to respond with tariffs as necessary.
His Foreign Affairs Minister says a retaliation plan is in the works.
I can't go into the details of that retaliation plan because I think it would be a bad strategy, but what I can tell you is everything is on the table.
Ontario's premier, who's already threatened to cut off electricity south of the border, insists nothing should be ruled out.
I'm not speaking for Premier Smith, but we have to use all the tools possible when our country's under attack economically, when our province is under attack economically. You just don't roll over.
Some say anything but a united front is helping, not hurting Trump.
I don't think it helps for different premiers to be delivering different messages to the United States. That just plays into Donald Trump's hands.
Premiers will meet with the Prime Minister on Wednesday to all try and get on the same page. They want to know exactly what Ottawa's plan is and what's on its list of potential retaliatory measures. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
The cost of mailing a letter has just jumped up. Canada Post has also raised the cost of other mail services. Nisha Patel has more on how much and why.
Donald Chang sells a lot of stamps at his convenience store. He says the price of postage usually only goes up by a few cents. Now it's increasing by 25%.
This is the largest I've seen for letter rates.
There are hikes on all mail products. To mail a domestic letter, a single stamp will jump from $1.15 to $1.44.
People are surprised and, a little angry that, they look at it as a big money grab.
In a statement, Canada Post said the change is required to better align stamp prices with the rising cost of providing letter mail service to all Canadians. The corporation expects the move will bring in $80 million this year. But its business model remains uncertain. Letter mail has plummeted 60% over the past 2 decades.
The volumes of the post office do not support and are not sustainable to support the existing system.
Right now, Canada Post doesn't use federal funding to operate, though this expert says there could be a future where the service is entirely restructured.
It's going to be much smaller. It's going to be mostly servicing rural and remote communities, and it probably will be subsidized by the taxpayer.
This bead store depends on Canada Post to mail supplies to its rural customers.
Given the volume of packages that we send, it is going to be significant.
For small business owners, this price hike on the heels of the postal strike is frustrating.
It'd be really great to see some actual reform in the way that Canada Post operates. We need reliable, affordable service.
Canada Post has lost more than $3 billion since 2018, and the strike made financial matters even worse. While workers are back on the job, the corporation still hasn't reached a new labor deal with its union. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
The British government has outlined a new plan to make the country a world leader in artificial intelligence. It includes a number of new measures, including cutting government red tape and encouraging investment in computing power centers. Crystal Gamansing has more.
Is this what you showed us here? Yeah.
The ambition, according to Prime Minister Keir Starmer, is to be an artificial intelligence superpower. He's talking about skilled jobs and the building of data centers right across the country, ultimately to grow the economy. Now, China and the U.S. dominate in this sector, and Starmer said earlier today that the UK can either be an AI taker or an AI maker.
This is the global race of our lives. Now, some countries are going to make AI breakthroughs and export them. Others will end up buying those breakthroughs and importing them. The question is, which of those will Britain be? AI maker or AI taker?
The Prime Minister says technology can improve the public sector, saying the technology can mean more human interactions. For example, if doctors spent less time on administrative work, they could see more patients. AI is already used in many sectors here in the UK, including health and education, but it is expected to grow rapidly.
What we need to see is how they're going to fund all of the initiatives that they're talking so enthusiastically about. It's a big deal to try to get this country's electricity grid fit for purpose, for instance, which it is not. It's a big deal to talk about small modular reactors. We're talking small nuclear reactors to power people's data centers. Who's going to pay for that?
Big tech firms are stepping up with $14 billion worth of industry investment here in the UK. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
Lunar New Year begins on January 29th, and a celebration is being planned in the Yukon. Each year, the Chinese-Canadian community throws a celebration in Whitehorse. There will be traditional dance, song, and a shared meal, celebrating the Year of the Snake.
Snake is about wisdom and elegance. Yeah, it's one of the Chinese zodiac. Yeah. So people born in the year of snake, they are often seen very deep thinker. They are charming and a little bit mysterious. So yeah, they're good at making decisions and tend to be grace and confidence. Okay. Yeah. And there's another funny saying that the snake is the baby of dragon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the nicknames comes believe the snake also share certain character of dragon.
Okay,
yeah, when
so
it comes
why.
to wisdom, strength. Yeah.
Great.
The Lunar New Year celebration will be held on January 25th at the Kwanlin Dun Cultural Centre in Whitehorse. The Toronto Maple Leafs had a special logo for the team's Indigenous celebration game this past weekend. An Anishinaabe artist from Northern Ontario designed it. She says the team gave her creative freedom to draw from her cultural heritage when redesigning the iconic logo. Take a look.
You enjoy this sacred place that we still call home. Chimigwech, go Leafs.
As a designer, it's kind of one of those dream projects that don't come along very often. It's really hard in a lot of Indigenous fields. We don't see a lot of talent celebrated at that level. And especially as a woman, as an Indigenous woman, it's really easy to say no for the fear of what might come in this kind of space. But I think it's really important to show up, because for other people, other artists, other Indigenous youth, I want them to know that we're here, they can be it, they can see it, and follow that path. I put beadwork because beadwork is, in our community, is an Anishinaabe style among many communities across Turtle Island. But my sister practices it quite frequently and is amazing at the beadwork. So I wanted to incorporate that as a stylistic element. And I also have included 2 medicines that grow in my community and in my yard, sweetgrass and cedar, 2 of our sacred medicines. And lastly, I've also included a turtle for Turtle Island, because I really wanted to hark back to the place that we live on, the place that we play on, and where we work and our communities are.
It's truly an inspiring and a truly important partnership for the club as well.
It's showcasing the Leafs' commitment to community, to highlighting and using that power of their fan base, of their community, to show the diversity and the support that other Indigenous communities need in this space.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
How can any of this be fair?
Now you might think, hey, we just need more doctors, but that's not really it.
Russian scheme here.
Shows you where it starts, where it ends.
Were you really willing to risk that job? Yes.
At Thunder Bay's favorite festival, Wake the Giant.
Ta-da! There it is.
Stream anytime. CBC News.
This is CBC North on your smart TV, because CBC News is now streaming local. Local news and weather on your connected TV or favorite device. CBC News North, streaming now.